Hey, welcome back, everyone. Thank you so much for watching. This is week 8, Inner Sight number 8, and thank you for all of you that have been following along. And if you're just starting, this is my channel where I interview people and I learn from their experiences in life and get their insights and where they see beauty, how they've seen courage in difficult or easy times. And I also get their input on how they think humanity is progressing and what things we can do to do better. So this next few weeks, you can expect to hear some female voices, and I hope you are able to listen to the whole interview, and I hope you enjoy. Take care and have a good week. Okay, thank you, Hannah. This is Hannah Reimers, and welcome to Inner Sight, everyone. And I'm glad to be interviewing her this week. Hannah, she lives in Boise, Idaho, and I live in Caldwell, so we live relatively close. And she just came back from living in Japan. And it's really great that she's here. And I just want to get her insights on some of the things that we talk about on this show. And so, Hannah, if you don't mind, if you could just introduce just the basics about yourself and where you're at right now in life, and then we'll get started from there.
Yep. So I'm Hannah or Nana. I don't know. Either one is fine. So I'm from the Marshall Islands, but I grew up here in Boise, Idaho, and I'm just coming back from studying in Japan. And right now, because of Corona and everything, just hanging out with close family and friends and catching up and waiting to see what happens in terms of like school and everything in the fall. So that's what I'm doing right now.
Yeah. So what was it like? When did you guys stop your studies for the coronavirus? What was that like? Did you guys just get an email and then suddenly you just had to stay at home and couldn't go anywhere? Or?
Actually, yeah, it was really weird. We were supposed to leave in May, but after our mock exams, all the borders and everything were starting to close up. And so um, the decision was made to send students back. Or originally we were supposed to take our exams, but as our borders started to close up, we decided that it is not the time to be worrying about that, and everyone should be able to get home safely before they were stuck essentially in Japan. So I think after February, regular schedules and everything was just messed up, and we all went home. So very sad, but good to be home too, I guess.
Yeah, I bet. What'd you think about your time there?
That was probably one of the best experiences I've ever had. Academically, it was just a struggle constantly, but I think that's good for anyone. But I think it's harder for me to say I fell in love with Japan, because I don't know, for me a lot of the hype around things like Tokyo or the food, everything was pretty okay for me. But because it was an international school with over 80 different countries being represented, I feel like the most amazing part of that experience was meeting all these different types of peoples, and yeah, just exposing myself to bigger world than Boise, Idaho or the Marshall Islands. So that was really nice.
Very cool. Hey, by the way, if any of you don't know, the Marshall Islands are in the Pacific Ocean, and I would show you on the map, but most maps don't really show it well because it's right on the edge. But
it's tiny, yes.
Yeah, and you could barely see it, but it is shown right where I'm pointing, right about there. And yeah.
Thanks, Wyatt.
You're welcome. That's for everyone else. But okay, so great. Well, why don't you share a little bit about what do you think? What are some experiences that you've had in your life that have shaped you into the person you are today?
Experiences. Well, again, especially I think traveling is really important, and being exposed to different cultures and people. And although I would give credit to a lot of different people or places I've been, I feel like if I were to name a person who has really shaped who I am now, I would probably say my older sister.
Oh yeah.
I think a big part of like changing and growing is being able to reflect. And sometimes I'm not able to like do that by myself. And so to
Hmm.
have someone as like this person I look up to, but also someone who will let me express myself and reflect on the things that I've done and what I want to continue and what like doesn't work for me. I think Tale, yeah, my older sister has been like that person for me. So
That's
yeah.
awesome. It's so great to have someone like that. Do you want to share with us maybe one thing that you were able to like reflect with her on that you remember, and so we could like kind of feel what that was like?
Mm, I think for for a long time, like we were always told to like look up to her because in school, like, she was a very good student.
Hmm.
She was very well rounded. She did sports. She had service. Her grades were good, and for me, it was just trying to like become like that too. But for a while, especially while I was in Japan, like I really struggled um, to like come to terms with like not knowing everything or because all of these students were coming in from different backgrounds and
Hmm.
a lot of them were like top of their class, and for me I had also believed that I was coming like top of my class from the Marshall Islands, but to like have that be completely that like image of myself be shattered when I was there was really hard for me. And I don't know, it took a lot of talks with her for me to realize that like academics is not everything and there's so
Hmm.
much more to me than just that. And yeah, I don't know, that was a really good several talks
Yeah.
with her, just
Hmm. Hmm.
having me realize that it's not the end of the world if I don't do well on this, and to really take the experience I had of like failing or doing this and turning that into a learning experience so that I could do better in the future. And so she's really
Yeah.
motivated me to keep going regardless. And yeah, that's just academics. There's probably
Hmm.
a whole
Hmm.
bunch of other
Yeah, of course. No, just
things.
having that one. I get what
Yeah.
you're talking about now. That's really, really helpful.
Hmm.
Yeah, that's great. I'm glad you have her. Cool. Um, well, let's go to the next subject, which is because, so we're in Idaho and things are actually starting to open up quite a bit, but
Mhm.
um, things are still different. And for a while there, pretty much most of our social activities and things like that, and in many cases, our jobs were on standstill. And like Hannah said, her school, stopped. So this provides us with time to rethink some things. And so I'm wondering, Hannah, what you think about if there was something that you feel like we could do better as a world, or maybe even just like personally. It could be either one. What are some things that
I
maybe you think about in this time?
um well, I think something important that I've learned during this time is that um, we probably see like all over social media, every platform, that people are taking advantage of this time, which is a good thing to better themselves, learn a new skill, and whatnot. But I've also come to learn that I don't know. I don't know if this sounds bad or not. Not like be lazy, but that it's okay to not constantly be doing something and like throwing yourself into several projects, and that we've been gifted this time to really reflect on like our experiences and really just sit down with ourselves and have this time alone whether it is like reflecting or simply just relaxing. Because I don't know, I feel like now people we see online, we're like, oh, I have to start working out, oh, I need to be
Mhm.
doing this, doing that, following these other people. And I mean, for some people that is good and it's easy to follow, but others who are discouraged when they don't feel like um, they're able to do all this stuff, I think it's important to recognize that it is okay to like take this time for yourself and really just take a load off, because
Mm.
I don't know when else we're gonna get an opportunity to like have this time off. But
Yeah. Mm. I
yeah.
like that. It's interesting. My really good friend of mine actually sent me something recently, and I don't know how well I'm going to be able to express it, but it's related to what you're saying.
Yeah.
And it's about this idea that there are like belief systems and philosophies that
Hmm.
are designed or like created, or I guess people view them as a way to better yourself so you could accomplish something and get something done better.
Right, right.
So like ways of reflecting, maybe ways of like praying or something like that, so you could accomplish tasks like in a better way. And so,
Hmm.
but what this particular video was talking about was that this seems to be more like a Western philosophy, whereas there's like these Eastern philosophies that whatever you're doing as part of these teachings are aimed at just helping you to just be, like, just to exist. And it was really interesting. I always take these things as like they're more insights for me, like on my
Yeah.
life. And so yeah, I guess that helped me to think about that idea of sometimes it's okay to think about just bettering, just like being, not
Hmm.
necessarily to do like more things or to do a certain thing better, but
Yeah.
yeah, but that it's okay to just focus on that. And so yeah, I've been thinking a lot, I mean, a little bit about that too. So yeah,
Yeah.
even though I always go back and forth. It's like, oh, there's this time and now I have time to do this, and like I have time to do that.
Yeah.
But then also sometimes it's good. I mean, I've gotten so much time to just go on walks and reflect, and I appreciate that too.
That's good.
Yeah, cool. Well, we're gonna go on then to a series of questions. So, by the way, for those of you who are watching, I've asked these questions to maybe 4 of the people that I've released now for interviews, and the point of these is to help to develop the inner sight, which is obviously the title of this channel. And so I'm glad that I was able to find these and ask these to people. But and the idea is that we're able to hear more stories from people that are able to see these things um, throughout their life, whether it's in a time of difficulty or a time of happiness. And so we can, like, little by little, all develop it in ourselves to be able to see these things. So you've heard them before, beauty, justice, courage. And so I'm going to ask these again to Hannah, and then just get what she feels about them. So I always start with this one, the not so good one. But Hannah, where in your life have you seen cruelty?
Cruelty. Okay. I think it's important to address like what's happening in the world right now. So on like big scale, um, I think we see cruelty in what is happening right now with like both coronavirus and the Black Lives Matter movement. Addressing coronavirus, I think especially here in the States, it's cruelty within each other, and just this, I don't know, lack of um, thoughtfulness for other people, especially during this time, because I don't know, people are putting material needs and matters over the health of other people. In the US, it's weird. You see protests for like people to be able to go out and get a haircut or get a pedicure or manicure. Um, and I don't, it's just something that's really sad to see, especially during a time like this when a lot of people are at risk, and to see a good amount of people trying to put themselves over all these people is just something very cruel to me in
Mhm.
regards to the coronavirus. And regarding the Black Lives Matter movement, we talked about this earlier, but like cruelty is shown within the system that we're in here, not just specific to the US, but everywhere, really. Cruelty against people solely because of the color of their skin. And I think as we educate ourselves during this time, you can see cruelty even within yourself. Maybe you don't think that you've been helping this cause, or being racist, but just like small things, like if you read about like your own privilege, you can see in ways that you've been cruel. But it's important to recognize this, and so that you can um, use your privilege or whatnot to support the movement, and not only just recognizing but also taking steps to um, see how you could fix that and help out. So
Yeah.
that's where I see cruelty on a big scale right now in the world.
Yeah. Very relevant. Wow. All right. Let's go to the next one. Next one is where, let's see. Let me just look at here. My bad. Where in your life have you seen kindness?
Where I've seen kindness. Oh, yes. I would also tie this back to a person in my life. Um, I I started taking economics, but I was not doing very well in that class.
Mm.
So I had no other option but to join this global politics class. And I think I was mentioning it earlier, but I feel like when I was in Boise and in the Marshall Islands, I always lived in this really small bubble that, and I was only aware of things happening very close around me. And I was gifted with this amazing teacher. We called him by his first name. His name is Carrie, from Jamaica. Very cool, very
Shout out to
relaxed.
Carrie from Jamaica.
Yes. Um, and I've never seen such kindness in a person in my entire life. Like a lot happened during our school year, and he's always been very understanding of our different situations. And although I felt very ignorant a lot of the time about what was happening in the world, he made sure that, like, he essentially got rid of that feeling and made me look at learning in a different way. And a lot of it was, we had a lot of discussion based things. And one thing he was our guest speaker, and one of the greatest things I've ever heard him say was that it was not simply a teacher student dynamic with any
Mm.
of us. It was, we were both learning from each other. So as he teaches us, we teach him too. And um yes, he's just always very open to talk to any of us. He didn't teach all the students, but we all knew him on campus as this person who was an authoritative figure,
Mhm.
but was also a friend and someone that we could go to in times of need. And he would always offer advice if needed, or simply just listen to us. And I don't think that's a very standard, like,
Mhm.
teacher student relationship. And so the kindness that he showed to not only me but the entire community has just had a really impact on all of us. And he's, yeah, it's probably my favorite teacher ever.
That's cool. Yeah, I love that. I love how you shared it. And just, any environment we're in, it could be challenging or difficult or sometimes nice at times, but to be able to find and recognize those people that help to make it, something special and more,
Yeah.
what's the right word? A nicer place to be and more supportive is really important. Awesome. Hannah, where in your life have you seen beauty?
Beauty. Okay. So I always say I find a lot of beauty in traveling, or just being able to see different places. But uh, in my time in Japan, I would give that title, or pinpoint that to a certain group, which was my interfaith group.
Mm-hmm.
So as a Baha'i, like here with family, and when I'm in Boise, Idaho, we are very involved in all the activities. And so when I moved back to the islands, that was very difficult for me to become as involved, because there's Marshallese language, and then there's like Marshallese religious language.
Oh.
Um, Same thing, but I don't know. It's just harder for me to grasp all the concepts. Like it's a lot easier in
You're talking
English for me.
about, oh, so you're talking about like being involved in Baha'i activities?
Yeah, yeah.
Okay.
Being involved in Baha'i activities in the islands was a lot
Mm.
harder for me. And then I went to Japan, and there was, oh, I didn't find out until later, but there was only one other Baha'i kid, and there were a lot of opportunities for us to like have feast or anything like that, or just being caught up in like school. It's not something we always thought about, but I found beauty in my interfaith group. It was something that was really important for me and really drew me back to this idea of being able to nurture this spiritual aspect of me, and I found beauty in us having one. So every week we would have uh, like a virtue essentially, and we could bring quotes or songs or anything from ourselves or our religions and share that with the group. And
Mm-hmm.
that was really cool. And one of the coolest experiences I've had was this trip to Tokyo we took. There we visited different shrines, temples, a cathedral that was beautiful, a mosque, and
This was in
we were
Tokyo? So
this
all of
this
that
was
was,
in Tokyo.
okay.
Yeah.
I didn't know it was that diverse.
Yeah, oh, it was crazy.
Hmm.
And we were led by this man, Padre Andrea, or like Father Andrea.
Mm-hmm.
And although he belonged to one specific belief, something he said that like I'll never forget is that for us, belief or religion is like a mountain
Mm-hmm.
or some sort of, peak. And obviously there are going to be different ways to trek this path or to make it to the top, and the top essentially being like um how would you say, just like this found spiritual like upper place. I'm not sure how to word it, but
Yeah,
oneness with God, or
oh, I like that. Okay, I was gonna say something
um
else, but let's stick with that.
oneness with God. So
Hmm.
religion or belief is like that. We can take all these different ways, but the ultimate goal for all of us is
Hmm.
the same. And it was really nice to have that conversation with all these people from different beliefs. Um, and it changed a lot of my peers like perspective on religion, because they told me that before they only thought of religion in one way, which is their way, and they're like, it's this
Hmm.
way, like I don't know why these other things exist. But
Right.
yeah, that was beautiful to see. Ah, right. And also we met this man who didn't belong to any religion, but he still had this spiritual. He believed in nurture. What do you call it?
Nurturing?
Nurturing,
Uh-huh.
like a spiritual side of you as well. And so he does that through physical like activity and like taking care of like his body and whatnot.
Hmm.
So he brought us to this place, and we got to practice boxing. And
Nice.
the whole time we also spoke about like silence and just like I don't know. It was
No, you
great
got to tell me a
though.
little bit about that. I'm really interested.
Silence. So there's, I don't know, there's a lot you can learn from speaking to each other,
Mhm.
but there's a lot you can learn simply by being in the presence of one another and doing something together. Uh,
Uh-huh.
and so in the beginning of our activities, we didn't say anything, but we went to one person and we did like a bow, and then we had like some silent time to like practice, and we after that we just had to have like reflection, and he's like, oh, you're all very beautiful, and if I was too busy like speaking to you, I wouldn't like be able to recognize that, or like, I don't know, recognize beautiful movement in what we were doing. And I don't know, the whole experience was just very beautiful, simply.
I love that. Yeah. So okay, so you guys when you guys were doing the yeah, after you would bow, you would like box each other, or you would just practice boxing moves, or what?
Yeah, so well, yeah, he had like the gloves
Oh
and
yeah,
stuff, and
yeah.
he just like motioned like where you're supposed to be going, and
Uh-huh.
it's really interesting. I never associated like spirituality with like physical
Hmm.
well-being as well, and it was very strange at first, but it made a lot of sense towards the end, like when you're practicing what he was talking about. So it was
Yeah.
really cool.
Oh, that's great. I want to try that sometime.
You should.
Cool. Next is where in your life have you seen courage?
Courage. This one was hard. Hmm. Courage. In my life, I've seen courage in, I think, even the smallest things. For me, like speaking up. Um, I think sometimes I've been very shy to like express myself, and so I don't want to come off as like someone who doesn't understand something that is happening. But I think in school, both the schools that I've been in with, um, like I look to my classmates who would have the courage to admit that they don't understand something, and when they do that, they can then receive help and make the learning experience so much better for themselves. So I've always found, um, like, see courage in these people, and it may not seem like a lot, I think, for them sometimes, but for me that's like very admirable. And like, I try to move myself to like, do the same as well, so I could help myself move along, and learn more. And also, since I've been back, I've heard of this Baha'i family. I haven't been able to meet them yet, but I heard a lot about their daughter who's only 16, right?
Hmm.
16 years old. And because her family, her parents, like the English isn't too good, she acts as this bridge really between her family and the Baha'is, and kind of does this translation sort of thing and handles more adult matters, I would say. And I have a lot of admiration for like her being able to do that. And it I it does take a lot of courage to step up and take on such
Yeah.
a big role for your family, and
It's
that's
like not
really
not
just,
something you're probably prepared for, but like you just kind of have
yeah,
to.
you're just being thrown into like
Yeah.
this whole thing. And so that's that's awesome of her. And yeah, I haven't met her yet.
Oh,
Hopefully
really?
soon. Yeah, I actually, wait, I met the little siblings.
Mm.
They're very cute.
Yeah.
But
Yeah, they're
yeah,
pretty cool.
yeah.
Yeah, I'm sure you will soon. That's great. We have two more questions, and the next one is, where in your life do you see justice?
Justice. Okay, I think first of all, like going back to the movement all across the
Hmm.
world right now, I think we see a lot of or a great sense of justice within the people
Yeah.
now, and it's awesome to see how people are using their voices to stand up and like protest or do whatever they can in order to um, stop what has been really instilled
Hmm.
in the system that we have in place right now, and that's really nice to see.
Sure.
But also on even more personal experience, justice, looked it up earlier, justice can mean like uh, truthfulness or doing what's right. And
Mm.
again, people that I thought of um, when thinking about this were my residential assistants. So, like, essentially the leaders in the house. Um,
When you were in Japan?
when I was in Japan, so it was like boarding school, obviously. So
Okay.
we all um, lived together in this house, and we were two people would be our residential assistants. And I feel that like the school had made a really good choice in the people who were the RAs for my house. I feel that like oh, oh gosh, this one's hard. How do I say? They constantly were um, these two people. They were just like us, like as students, but they worked as people who would speak to both us and the administration, and
Right.
again, like be this bridge
Hmm.
too. And I felt that a lot of the times, like if we ever had issues that needed to be resolved, these were two people who could do so very efficiently, and you we've never felt uncomfortable if we had an issue to go up to them and rely on them to do what is right or do what's best for our house. And they handled, oh my gosh, why, what was the word again?
They handle
handled Handled things with like in
um
I
a
can't,
controlled manner.
it yeah, in
Yes.
a controlled manner without um
And it was confidential. Like they didn't
in
share it with
confidence,
everyone.
can you say that?
In confidence, yeah.
In confidence, a lot of our matters were handled. So yeah, the, those two people were it for me.
So like you trusted them that if you had an issue, you could bring it to them, and not only would they take care of it, but they also wouldn't like uh
Expose.
expose. Okay, okay. Yeah. Mm. No, I love that example of seeing justice in essentially a leader, right? Like
Right.
someone who's able to provide that. Um, wow. Awesome. Okay. Have you had time to think about this last question?
I have. My
Yeah.
answer is
The last question is
yeah.
okay, so everyone knows where do courage, justice, beauty, and kindness originate? Where do they come from?
Where do they come from? So my thoughts are as listen. Um, so I think some time ago, a long, long time ago, we were blessed with these virtues, and someone was the first to practice them, and somehow it was recognized and named.
Hmm.
But for me now, I think all these different virtues are something that we are taught from looking to others or how we were raised and like our environment. It's something that we learn. Not only that, but they're virtues that we actively have to practice and choose in order for them to still be concepts or things that are relevant. And so yeah, just looking to others around us and how we grow up and what we see, these virtues are a practice and something that we are taught. And
Yeah. I'm gonna share a little something then, because I get this sense from like what you're saying. In some ways, we should be really hopeful. So what I'm saying is, like, sometimes you hear people talk about the most common phrase. It's like, oh, people today are so this or so that.
right.
So based on what you're saying, there is a lot of hope there, because basically it kind of is what we make it. So like if they need to be taught, then we have the ability to like basically teach like all of the younger ones like about what these virtues are. And if they
Mm-hmm.
need to be practiced, then it's up to us to like practice them. And we have that choice. Like it's
Yes.
not like we're just born one way or born another, but actually it's kind of like our decision, like as individuals, but also as like a community, to decide like if we want our community to be a certain way, then let's like teach this. Like, I mean, do you agree? Or
Yeah, I think that's what I'm trying to get at as well. But yeah, because I don't know, um, we're not, I agree with us not being born this or that. And it's, these virtues are something that we learn from others, we see, and we can practice and develop ourselves. And that in turn will just be passed down for as long as time. And, yeah.
cool. All right. That concludes the interview. Thank you, Hannah. I really
Thank
appreciate
you,
you agreeing to do this.
Wyatt.